I want to welcome all of you again. It's nice to be here to our third midweek meeting since the beginning of the new year. Some people have been asking me, and so I thought maybe it would be helpful to just again give a little bit of an introduction as to what it is that I'm trying to do with these Wednesday nights. I had a meeting with the elders the other night, and I was sharing with them a little bit of the thinking behind this. Some years ago, I just seemed to be, every so often, it would seem like the still small voice was whispering, into my ear, that verse from the third chapter of Book of Revelation, the first of the seven churches, Ephesus. And Jesus, commends them, but then says to them, "There's one thing I have, against you, and that is that you've lost your first love." And I was just thinking about that the other day. I've now been a baptized Seventh-day Adventist church member for 40 years. And in those years, I've gone through a lot of things and seen a lot of things, experienced a lot of things, mostly good, but some bad. And after a while, you get a little weary, a little, if I can even say it, folks, just a little bit jaded at times. And so I started to hear that, God whispering, that still small voice, your first love. And so I started to think about that more than a couple of years ago. And I began to think, well, what do I do? I mean, when I came to the church, I came, forgive the expression, but came naked. I had no history. I had no background. I had no culture. I had no family, no friends. I wasn't, married. I didn't have children. I didn't have a master's degree. I didn't have any education really. I had, half of a journalism degree. And I just came as a young man who started reading scripture and fell in love with the Lord. And so 40 years later or thereabouts, how do you get back to that first love? And the more I thought about it, the more I began to think, well, what I think I want to do is I want to go back and begin to explore my faith background, my history, all the people I've met, the people, both the influences that I knew of and didn't know of, that shaped my life, family backgrounds. My great grandfather was on my dad's side was a canon in the Church of England. On my dad's mother's side, we can trace their history all the way back to the Huguenots and St. Bartholomew's Day massacre in France. And my mother was from a Mennonite family. And I can go on and on and on. Just before I became a Christian, used to be a gentleman by the name of Art Hives, an Anglican priest. He used to come on one of the Vancouver radio stations on Sundays, maybe during the week too, but I didn't listen during the week. And he would do these 1-minute devotionals, and it'd end by saying, "My name's Art Hives. I'm a priest." And my ears would be just pinned back every time I hear him come on. My sister and I both. And we had no Christianity at all, but there was something about him. He had an impact. Anyway, so that's just a very quick synopsis of what I have been wanting to do with these Wednesday night meetings. I've entitled it Journeys, the stories of faith from sacred text to living testimony and everything in between. And so what I'd like to do in the evenings, each week it'll be a little different. One week, maybe we'll look at a biblical story. And my hope is to have a co-host each night. And sometimes we'll look at a biblical story and explore it. Other times, maybe we'll look at some stories from history. And other times we'll have a guest come on and we'll let them share their personal testimony, living testimony. And so that's kind of the approach. We're in the very early stages of that right now. I'm experimenting. I've got a lot of work to do to really get things organized. I need to find co-hosts. This is where you folks come in. I need some people who might be interested in being a co-host once a month. Maybe you're interested in exploring with me biblical stories, or maybe you're interested in exploring with me stories of history, faith, down through the years. Or maybe you're interested in helping me find some people who'd like to come on and we can interview them and they can share their testimony. So we need those kinds of things. And then we just need a group of people who want to join us every week, and we talk to others and say, hey, come join us. We're having some fun here. And so anyway, that's sort of the plan of what we're doing. And we're in the very early stages. We're not going to be recording our prayer times, so we'll spend maybe a half an hour. Tonight, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be sharing with you the story of a fascinating story of a young man who Lesra Martin was his name. He was a kid who grew up in New York City, in the ghettos, with a very interesting series of circumstances. He met up with a group of Canadians from Toronto who said, you know, if you want, you can come and live with us. They were kind of a group of sort of professionals who were very idealistic, wanting to make a change in the world. And so they were using their skills to try to do that. And they said, come live with us. We'll teach you to read and we'll give you a future. And so to make a long story short, he did. And then eventually, he's actually a very bright kid. They discovered that. He started reading. He found a book in the used bookstore about Hurricane Carter, the black boxer who was falsely accused and convicted of murder. Some of you may have heard his story because it became a movie of Denzel Washington. It's called the Hurricane. Somebody's got their microphone on. Could you turn that off, please? Maybe Adam, just, yeah. And so anyway, this young man and these Canadians became instrumental in helping gain this Carter's freedom. And so what I'm going to do tonight, I've got Scott here. This documentary. It's only 10 minutes long. I'm going to show it to you. And you're going to see there are 2 or 3 key things in this documentary. Number one, there's a mother's faith and her desire for something better for her kids, and how she says, sometimes God works in mysterious ways. Number 2, this is a story about education. And number 3, it is also a story about the power of education, by the way. And number 3, it is also a human story about how people working together can make a difference in our world. So we're going to explore that. We'll show the video. We'll watch it. It takes just a little over 10 minutes, I think. And then we'll spend some time just sort of talking to our co-host and the rest of you about what we're seeing, how this impacts, what you thought about it, the questions you might have, ask Scott or I, and the video, its meaning to us in terms of how we live our faith lives today. So here we go. I'm going to share my screen. And I want to encourage you to enjoy this video. There you have it, folks. The story of Lesra Martin, a remarkable story. You noticed there was a quick shot there of Reader's Digest at his face. Lori and I were standing in a grocery line. Well, I think we were in Saskatoon at that time, maybe earlier. And I just happened to see this. And for some reason, I pulled it off the rack. And that was my first introduction to this remarkable story. Lesra went on actually to become a judge and practiced for a while as a judge in Kamloops, British Columbia. But then eventually got this call to go to the UN and then the movie. And as a result of that, his name, I don't know, I've lost track of what his story is now. But he became such a spokesman for education throughout the world. So he's just the power of education. So Scott, you're here with us tonight. Any thoughts about the power of education and its strength to transform human lives? Any thoughts?
Well, as we're probably all aware, this is Black History Month, the beginning of it. I don't know if that's why you chose this or not, but certainly seems appropriate. I mean, yeah. We probably heard these stories before, and when it was ending, I was thinking, yeah, I am white and I have lived a privileged life. That's what I was thinking about. Yeah. Certainly the power of education, yeah, and him feeling guilty that he was the one that was chosen. It ended on a great note too, that he's looking forward. He didn't say the word, but where he's looking forward to heaven when the whole family will be at peace, not in the ghetto anymore, just at peace, right? And that's something we can all share together. And that's why this school is here, for a Christian education, so that our boys and girls can get to know Jesus Christ, and knowing him is the greatest education that anyone can have, because after Jesus Christ is part of your life changes.
Yeah.
Also noting to myself that of the stages that he was at, and I know that many of us have in our lives, we can call it education because it is, but God's leading in our lives. We've done various things, and yeah, and God is behind us all the way, leading us, and I'm thankful to God for doing those things, and for working through the people to bring strength and encouragement when we need it, so that we can keep on doing it and really be delighting to do as well. So thank you for sharing that video today. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I had clicked my camera on. My fault.
Oh, there you go. That's
Very
not a
sorry.
problem.
I clicked my mic, but I forgot the camera. Very sorry.
Not a problem, Scott. Not a problem. Yeah, this is a story of education. It's also a story of faith. There was his mother. Did you folks pick up on that? What her name? His name. Ezra Martin, right? Ezra Lazarus, the resurrection. And so the Old Testament prophet is just, this is a story of faith, a mother's desire for something better for her kids. And so it is a faith story too. It's a remarkable story. And the commentator made the statement that sometimes God answers our prayers in unusual ways. What do you folks think about that? Any thoughts? Any questions? You're all very quiet.
Oh, they're thinking. They're thinking.
Yeah.
They're thinking.
Yeah, Scott, I'm as a minister, I am very thankful to be a part of a global organization that esteems the value of Christian education. If we're going to do our part in trying to alleviate poverty on this planet, then it begins with fighting the fight of literacy. And yes, it's literacy of reading and writing, profoundly important. But then comes spiritual literacy. And it's such an important part of who we are as a church community. We have the largest Protestant church school system in the world. It's not always perfect. And as any educator can testify, especially a principal, the battles that you fight are daily, are difficult and challenging. But, and here's a question for you folks. Is it worth it? Do you think it's worth it, especially in the first world?
Christian education?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to say right away, absolutely. I mean, just that Lesra Martin here. You influence one person, and he influences thousands, probably hundreds of thousands in his case.
Okay.
I don't know.
Maybe millions.
Yeah, millions. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's probably a million hits on that video, right? But I remember coming here, and I'm not saying that I'm Lesra Martin, okay? But when I was back in Windsor, our school had 800 students or something, right? And I know most of the students, and I'm teaching most of them music. And then I'm with choirs in various churches, our own church, but 3 Sunday churches. And I'm coming here, the first year I was here, let's see, how many students did I have? 7 students or something like that, sitting in front of me. And I went like, Lord, you brought me here from ministering to a large group of people. and I have 7 students sitting in front of me. And I said, you people are VIPs. You people are going to be doing something great with your life. Yeah, so and I'm sure that that's going to happen. And we never know who we're teaching. Treat every one of those people like they're going to be the conference president or the pastor of Rest Haven Church or the next inventor of a cure for cancer. You just don't know who's in front of you. You certainly can't judge it from where they came from or the color of their skin or how smart you think they are. God can make a world of difference in somebody's life and impact possibly millions.
Yeah, I always remember the story in my colporteur days. We did a trip one time to go see the big web presses. At that time, I think they had moved to San Francisco. But anyway, one of the press guys there did a devotional for us one day. And he talked about a evangelist, early part of the 20th century, who was very discouraged. And he made a plea with God. He said, if I don't baptize, a large number of people, I forget the details, so you have to forgive this, and in retelling, it may be a little apocryphal too. But anyway, he made this deal. If I don't have success, I'm done. I quit, And so he went to this small little island off of I think the east coast of the US. And he started to do this evangelistic series. And in the end, he baptized 4 people.
It was actually in England.
Oh, was it England? Maybe you should tell the story.
Well, yeah, he went to this small town in England and did his thing. And there was only one family, the husband and wife got baptized, and that was it. And he quit. But those people were the father and mother of Maxwell.
Arthur Maxwell.
Yeah. And the impact Arthur Maxwell has had is phenomenal, right?
Yeah.
But
So like you said, Scott, you just never know the impact you're going to have. And of course, Christian education is much larger than our church schools. It's our Sabbath school, it's our VBS program, it's our summer camp programs. It's the rubbing shoulders one-on-one with people in the community. It's the friendships we develop in the workplace. It's all of the above, right? But it's such a profoundly important part of fulfilling the great gospel commission of Matthew 28 to go and make disciples of all nations. And we just never know. Jesus, the Old Testament prophet said, wrote that my word shall not come back unto me void. So we do our part, and we just never really know. We have to live by faith that somehow the impact we're making will go beyond our limited vision.
Pastor?
Yeah.
I just wanted to kind of comment on everything. When I was watching that, I thought, wow, we're giving such opportunities. We have such opportunities in this country, and we often do take them for granted. Now, I worked in post-secondary education for the University of Winnipeg, University of Manitoba, and I just really encourage education, obviously, because that's why I work with places like that, because that's what I really believe in. And of course, those are secular places, but my children have gone through Christian education, not Adventist education, but Christian education. And I've seen people my generation who've gone through the Adventist system, and it saddens me to see that so many have left, and I wonder what makes the difference. And my husband grew up an Adventist and has gone through the Adventist system. His siblings have as well, and some of them have great stories to tell, and some of them have some pretty horrific stories to tell. The reason I didn't put my children in Adventist schools is because we were in Winnipeg when it was time to do so. And there were some horrible things happening at the Adventist Academy there, and they weren't dealt with. And I understand no system is perfect, no school is perfect. It's not just the Adventist school, but other denominations have issues in their schools. And so what I want to say is that we can never take it for granted, the minds that God gives us, the people who we're teaching. So whether you're a principal or whether you're a pastor or whether you're a teacher or church member or whatever you are, understanding that the young people, the influence that you have on them is so incredibly huge. We cannot for a moment take that influence for granted and let our guard down and say, well, this is the, whatever goes, because that's not okay. Some of the stories that come out of that should not be negative. The experiences should be positive for the most part. And when you hear that they're not, it is discouraging and it's disheartening. And it can turn people away from even Christianity, having had those experiences. So when we talk about Christian education, Adventist education, I understand we have our ups and downs, but for the most part, it should be an upward swing, right? Where things are getting better, where we work at it, where we show God's love, when we're proactive, when there's issues, when we deal with those issues, and make sure that our children who are in those schools have a positive influence upon them in their daily life with us.
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Maria. There's no question that we are in a battle for the souls of humanity, and every step of the way we find ourselves being confronted. Jesus said it in John chapter 8, an enemy has done this. He said, the father of lies. He was a murderer from the beginning, and he is the father of lies. And I always like how, I don't know, like it, but it's such a vivid image to me, when Jesus, in Genesis chapter 3, 4, Cain and Abel, and the statement is made, sin crouches at your door, waiting to consume you. It was warning Cain, and you must master it, so yes, there is, trying to make forward momentum in this world. It takes tremendous sacrifice and energy and effort. You look at the story of Ezra Martin. It ended, of course, on the note that, all the positive that he had experienced, but yet there was this terrible hole in his heart for his younger brother who wasn't able to make the journey, and he's haunted by that question: why me? Why me? So it's a great story, a story of faith, a story that identifies the profound power of education. Faith and education together can make a huge difference. But as you said, Maria, we have to push together, strive together to make our commitment to sharing the gospel with people at whatever level, whether it's in our church school, in our Sabbath school classrooms, from up front, that we make sure that we do, we'll all pull together as best we can by God's grace to make those experiences positive, faith-filled, and joyous. And that's a real challenge.
Pastor?
Yes.
I just want to share two short things. Thank you for making me the co-host.
Okay.
Okay. Some of you heard the gravel driveway sermon that I spoke quite a while ago, but I really appreciate my parents making the decision to not get the paved driveway in the neighborhood and save the money and send me to Christian elementary school and high school, right? They really just supported it. The Bible says, and I know you all know the verse, but I'm going to repeat it. Train a child in the way that they should go, and when they're older, they will not depart with it. For the times, and some of us in the room here have maybe departed for a short time. For the time that I departed, God's Spirit was always there, and the gentle voice was just always there, calling me back and saying, should you really be doing this? So I'm really appreciative of my parents' sacrifices so that I could get that Christian education. And the second and last thing I want to say is I had a neat experience. I think it started about 2 weeks ago. I posted something from my original job in Northern Ontario on a historical site there. And it was the boys and girls who were in a couple of musical dramas. And one of the little boys who was in grade 3, I guess at the time, connected with this picture and then connected with me and said, "Do you remember teaching me Tony Chestnut knows I love you?" You know, he still remembered that, right? And some other songs we sang. And he wanted to share with me what an influence I had on him. We're like, wow, this guy's in his mid-30s, right? And he said, "I used to watch you on Sunday morning." Again, I was helping my Anglican friends there. I used to watch you on Sunday morning playing that organ, you know, and it inspired me to learn to play the organ. It's like, wow. But the real reason that I'm bringing this up to you is that he was on his way from Northern Ontario to Kingston because a female relative of his needed to go for emergency medical care to a bigger hospital. And she died while he was on the flight with her. And to this day now, he is an atheist. I tried to send him a Bible verse the other day, and he went like, "No, please don't send that to me. You can be my friend, you know, and you can talk to me, but don't send me Bible verses." But yet he wants me to play, and maybe it was last Friday, he asked me to play "In the Sweet By and By," and I played it on my piano for him. So he has it, you know, he's still there, but he calls himself an atheist. But I'm hoping that God connected me with him so that maybe his heart will be turned towards the Lord again.
Yeah, train up a child. Train up a child. Keep the faith, brother.
Yeah.
Well, folks, it's 7:40. Unless there's anybody wants to ask a final question or share a comment, I think we're going to ask Adam to end the recording, and we'll just spend some time in prayer. Yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, as a fan of Ellen White, if there's any doubt or confusion as the purpose of Adventist education, to read her material. I mean, there's no question that our faith is built around Christian education, and that's why, I mean, our schools are extensive, right? And when I traveled around the US from Norfolk, Virginia, all the way through Panama and then up the West Coast, we stopped at many ports. I was on a ship, and no matter what school you went to or church you went to, you would meet someone that went to CUC or had family in Alberta or was related to me somewhere in the past. It was our Christian family. And I think our schools connect us, you know. Yeah. It's just an amazing experience. So I was in Savannah, Georgia, in an almost all Black church, and found someone that asked me if I knew the Townsends from Alberta. And it's just such an amazing feeling to know that no matter where you are, you're going to find love and belonging in our schools and in our churches. And I think our schools are part of that.
Thank you, Lauren, for that testimony.